Ideally, what we're gonna do in the hospital is like we'll get the pillows and then we'll lift up the bed. Okay. But this is actually to like A doula is someone who is trained to be with pregnant women. They are trained to provide physical, emotional, educational support. We help the clients speak for themselves, helping them find their voice so that they could advocate for themselves and say, I'm not gonna allow this. You're not gonna treat me with disrespect and abuse. It's work for you and baby. Right. So what you're doing by going up the stairs sideways is you're opening up your pelvis.
The doulas that I have, they're both Black women and are really trying to change the conversation around Black maternal health. So it's very reassuring to know that their concerns are the same as mine, and they've studied and done way more research than I have, and knowing that they are like, no, you know, put my foot down, you don't have to do this, this is what this means.
Right, and that counter pressure helps relieve a little bit of that intensity of that pain, right? And so when you get...
It's such a relief that they are really going to be advocates for me, my baby, my delivery, my health, everything.
A Black woman in childbirth who is highly educated, who also has high income, and who lives in a great neighborhood in New York City is still more likely to die than white women who live in poorer neighborhoods and across New York City. Nationally, there are between 700 and 900 women each year who die in childbirth, and about 100 times that almost die in childbirth. When you think of having a baby, you should be thriving. It should not be, whoo, I barely made it, thank goodness. And for Black women, when we're at 3 times to 4 times the rate of dying in childbirth, that number becomes really important to think about. The US is the only industrialized nation where maternal mortality is increasing. Other places like the UK or like China even, right? So places that have not necessarily the same freedoms we have, but they have a robust economy, they have better birth outcomes than we do. And part of the reason they have those things is because they built a social infrastructure. Women have access to paid leave, for women to have access to child care, for men to have paternity leave. All the things that you would need to support a healthy birth, they've built into their societies. So although we spend more per capita for health care than any other country in the world, we don't get the benefit of that spend because we've not created a system outside of just the doctor's visit, that transaction that supports health, all the social infrastructure that you really need to be healthy, we don't invest in.
Over the last decade, the maternal mortality rate in New York State has gone up by 60%. And it's particularly bad right here in New York City, where Black women are estimated to be 12 times more likely than white women to die in childbirth because of complications.
If you're worried about finances, if you have housing insecurity, if you have all these other things that are going on in the back of your mind, plus compounded with the fact that you're pregnant and you're carrying another living human being inside of you, come on. And that weighs on a person, that weighs on their body, that weighs on their spirit. I think that this work is especially important because we act as a defense system.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. As a Black woman and a mother of 6 children, the ways in which we are cared for lies within the intersections of our lived experiences and racism and access to culturally humble care. In order for us to truly have equitable care, it will take all of us, providers, patients, community, challenging years of institutional racism and personal biases that we have all learned.
And what we see from the data is the stress of racism on their bodies, the interactions that happen inside the systems, the not being heard or listened to. Like those moments of people having to advocate for their lives is causing them to die at a higher rate than white women.
So community-based doula work is extremely important because we're working with marginalized communities, right? So marginalized communities that don't have the resources to pay for doula care because doula care isn't covered by insurance. My philosophy is all women deserve to have a doula regardless of their economic situation. Every woman should have a doula. It needs to be accessible, right? And so really pouring resources into community doula programs that exist, right? That are training more doulas of color to do this work, but also providing the funding so that these doulas can have a livable wage. And that's kind of like the challenge with community doulas. They want to help, you know what I mean? But they're also like, I live in New York City and I have to pay my high rent.
So welcome to Ancient Song Doula Services Full Spectrum Doula Training. Over the course of the next 7 weeks, you have me all to yourself. Traditionally, in indigenous communities and communities of people of African descent, we've always had these individuals who were the pillars within our communities who assisted us in our reproductive health. And when I first started this work, I realized that I would go to workshops and to other trainings, and I'd be the only person of color in the room. Why is support even important, right? Why are you here, right? Because ultimately, you're here to do what? Support. Say it again. Support. Say it again. Support. Say it again. Support. Say it again. Support. I got tired of being in places where I always had to explain myself, like, oh, you know, I'm talking about maternal mortality because I see it. Voice to advocate for yourself and or someone else, all right? And so, yes, Black doulas need to be in the room. We already know what it feels like to not be listened to. And sometimes even the doula who's in the room is not being listened to. Regardless of who you are, when you have melanin in your skin and people can see it, you've experienced something on some level. And so I see, one, the doula as someone who's reclaiming their ancestral roots, but then two, as this reproductive justice, birth justice fighter, fighting for the basic human right to birth your children the way you want to, in a way that's safe and affirming to you. It's interesting to see the person's reaction when you ask them, like, how do you envision your care going? And they're like, well, yeah, you know, it's like how it normally goes, you know? And I'm like, no, but what do you see for yourself? Like, what do you want? And a lot of times I'm met with like, oh, no one's asked me, like, what do I want? We do more research when we get ready to go to dinner. When it comes to your healthcare, you get the recommendation off of, oh, well, my insurance says I can go here.
Okay. So we're just gonna go into labor. Right. So do you remember like some signs of labor?
Contractions.
Contraction.
Confetti.
Confetti.
Comes out the sky when you go into labor. My first pregnancy was completely normal. I had a private practice doctor who was wonderful, loved her a lot. But this time I have another wonderful Black OB, but she's in a general practice. So I don't know exactly who's going to deliver me. I just get very iffy about just people jumping in and saying, oh, we should do this, because it's like, why? Why are we running these tests? Why are we doing this? I understand it's protocol, but is it necessary? Can we just try the old-fashioned way first and see what happens?
But like usually when the baby's coming, and have you talked about delayed cord clamping with your provider?
No.
Okay. So you want to make sure
this time around, I just felt like I needed that support. I wanted an advocate. I wanted someone who I can just text, hey, I'm feeling this way. What is this? Is this okay? What teas can I drink? Is there anything I can do to kind of help this process instead of just everything being like, here's a prescription, take this, you're fine, because maybe I'm not.
You know, okay, so this is a blend and it's called Anxiety Ease.
Sounds about right.
Being a doula is my divine work. I've been doing this for 19 years, and there's nothing like going to a birth and watching a baby be born. I get so excited because I am going to witness a woman push out a baby into this world and her becoming a mom. It's amazing to see, especially when their wishes are heard and they're honored. It's just like, yes,